Hey everybody, this is Anthony with VR Game Rankings, and of course you are now tuned in to our daily vlog series. It is Thursday, December 28th, and guess what folks, I do have a handful of news stories. Now, we're still scraping the bottom of the barrel. There still isn't a lot that's out there, but I do have a couple of legitimate news stories, so that's good news. And then what we're going to do when we get through those news stories is I'm going to answer some of your guys' questions that you've been putting into the comments on the various YouTube videos, and also a few questions that were emailed to me as well. So I'll go ahead and kind of do a question and answer session at the end of this, but let's go ahead and kick it off with the news. So the number one story of today is that the Pimax Kickstarters are unlikely to get any headsets in January. So this story comes to us from Tom's Hardware, which has an article about Pimax planning on bringing its fifth prototype to CES. So basically what they're going to do is they're going to bring their fifth prototype to CES, and they want to get some feedback on this prototype, and then from CES they're going to take that feedback and they're going to try to finish up the design, and they hope to start shipping their first headsets in the spring. Okay, and supposedly this fifth prototype has an improved IPD adjustment system, and it also features better heat dissipation, and it's using stronger materials. Now, the downside of stronger materials is the weight of the overall unit is going to increase. We're not sure how much the weight's going to increase off that. And then one other little new design feature is that the Steam VR sensors, previously they were just exposed to the elements basically, and so now this new design features covers over those Steam VR sensors, so they're unlikely to get scratched up or damaged as you're using the headset, of course. Now, this doesn't really come as much of a surprise to me, because I've seen a lot of Pimax threads over the last, say, 2 months or so, and every time I'm in there, there's always somebody that's like, yeah, we're getting these in January, we're getting these in January, Pimax is shipping in January. And I remember every time I saw that, I was like, yeah, I don't think so. If they actually ship a headset in January, I would be shocked, and that obviously has not happened. So a lot of times what happens with these things is companies will make predictions on when they're going to deliver something, but as long as it's just a prediction and they're just guesstimating, and they don't, they qualify it by saying, hey, we're not sure exactly when this is coming, but we're hoping to ship whatever, that doesn't get them in trouble. So they can make all the hopes that they want to kind of string you along and get you along for the ride, and then you could be waiting a very long time. That's the problem with Kickstarter, really. We know a lot of people that have done various Kickstarters. You put your money in, and once you put your money in, you're pretty much at the mercy of whoever is delivering the product or the service. It's kind of like a donation, really. It's a donation with the hope that you're actually going to get something at the end of it, but not with any realistic promise. And so that's kind of the situation with Pimax. Obviously, Pimax has gotten a nice infusion of cash recently. I think they got around 15 million in US dollars from some investment. So they're going to have the money to produce these things, and Kickstarter backers will eventually get their Pimax headsets, absolutely, but it's not going to be quite as quick as everybody was hoping for. The funny thing is like, if there's going to be some major announcement at CES from another company that has a headset that has a lot of these same features, but it's a much more well-known brand, and then all these Pimax Kickstarters are going to be like, damn, I wish I just didn't put my money in there. But, we'll have to see what happens. Okay, story number 2, the Oculus Subreddit has hit 100,000 subscribers. So not a ton to this story, really. Basically what it is when you subscribe to a various subreddit, there's a certain number of subscribers, and the Oculus subreddit has continued to increase its number of subscribers over the months. lots of new people have been coming in. Lots of new people came in the summer of Rift. Lots of people came in around Black Friday when the sales were happening. And now, of course, with Christmas time, certainly VR has been a pretty major gift for people. It's one of these big things that people are looking forward to, and that's a lot of times for Christmas. You might get a big Christmas gift that is kind of given to the family in general. It's kind of like, here's the gift for the whole family. We all get to use this. And so that definitely happened, and I'm sure the Oculus Rift was a big benefactor of that, being at that $350 price, being really good price to value ratio right there. And so the Oculus subreddit has really ballooned, and it is now past 100,000 users. And basically, this is just a great sign in general. You know, rising tides lifts all boats, and so we are going to have more and more people that are going to be entering the various subreddits. VR is starting to grow up. One of the downsides of this, though, is we kind of had this really tight-knit, close community that we had before. I remember on the Vive subreddit, and you kind of get to know people, and there's kind of this camaraderie and what have you. And then when it starts to really blow up and you just start letting in the unwashed masses, I guess you could say, then it loses a little bit of that tight-knit community. So that's the only real downside here. But this is great news for VR in general, no question about it. Okay, third story, we go to the game To the Top. This is by Electric Hat Games, is a developer of To the Top, and there was a PSVR Redditor that emailed Electric Hat Games and asked them, hey, are you guys going to bring To the Top to PlayStation VR? And so he got an email in return, and I'm going to go ahead and read what the developers of To the Top had to say to him. They said, hey there, thanks for following up. We are working on the PSVR version now. It is up and running currently, but we need to go through the process of refining it and making sure it passes Sony's rules. So we are hard at work, and we will announce a date in the near future. Take care. Okay, so this is great news. One thing that we've seen in the VR industry recently is lots of games from PlayStation VR end up on the Oculus Rift and HTC Vive, and vice versa. You'll have Oculus Rift and Vive games that eventually make their way to PlayStation VR. And there's a lot of cross-pollination there, and it's really good for both communities, really. It's good for the console VR community and the PC VR community, because what ultimately ends up happening is most of the best VR games find themselves on all three platforms, and that's something that we like to see, because then we can just talk about a game being good. We don't really have to get into platform specifics, and that's a nice thing. And To the Top is a great game, and it probably would work quite well on PlayStation VR. I remember thinking about To the Top not too long ago and thinking, yeah, you know, this probably would work well on PSVR, and I kind of wondered if they'd have a PSVR version, and absolutely they are working on it. Now, they talked about making sure it passes Sony's rules, and that is one of the things that these developers have to deal with when they bring a game to Sony's platform. There's a certification process that you have to go through, which makes it quite a bit different than getting your game on Steam or possibly the Oculus Store. Sony has a lot of check boxes that need to be checked to make sure that your game holds up and people aren't stranded in a certain area, they don't know what to do, or the game doesn't run quite right, all these different kinds of things. So Electric Hat Games is working on that. They're refining it, and they're making sure that it will work under all of Sony's rules. Of course, it will then need to pass certification, and then eventually it will be announced for the PSVR platform. But that's an outstanding game, so I know a lot of PSVR gamers are definitely looking forward to that. That'll be really good when that hits PSVR. Speaking of PSVR, actually, Starblood Arena is going to be free in the month of January to PlayStation Plus members. Now, the interesting thing about PlayStation Plus, so if I go back a number of years, I think I mentioned this, that I was a PC gamer, But then in 2013, like around November of 2013, you had the Xbox One come out, you had PlayStation 4 come out, and I jumped back on the console bandwagon. I ended up getting both an Xbox One and a PlayStation 4 that November. I jumped on both of them, and I had PlayStation Plus. I had the PlayStation Plus service for my PlayStation 4 for a number of months, and one of the reasons it made such incredible sense to have that is that I would get a PlayStation 3 game for free, I'd get a PlayStation 4 game for free, I'd get a PlayStation Vita game for free, and I had a Vita and I still had my PS3 at that point. And so you're just getting all these free games every month. So yeah, why not do it? Even though I wasn't a multiplayer guy, I'm not playing a lot of these multiplayer games, so I don't really need to have that online service to be able to play Call of Duty or whatever it is. It still makes sense for me to have PlayStation Plus because I was getting free games on 3 different platforms. Now, of course, when I eventually jumped on the PlayStation VR bandwagon, I was no longer a console gamer. I'm 100% VR, and I don't really care about PlayStation 3 games or PlayStation 4 games or even PlayStation Vita games. And so I was like, well, hey, when are you guys going to start providing a PSVR game every single month? If you guys tell me you're guaranteed to get a new PSVR game for free every single month, I probably would join PlayStation Plus, even though I'm not into the multiplayer. And then you get the benefit of also being in the multiplayer as well. Now, to the best of my knowledge, Sony has never come out and officially said that you are going to get a PSVR game every single month like clockwork. They have not said this, although if you go back and you look at the various months, they continue to provide free PSVR games, but they're just not going to put that guarantee behind it. But it could be an interesting situation. If you are a PSVR owner and you don't have Plus, if you find a really good deal to get PlayStation Plus for 1 year, you might want to go ahead and grab it, because it seems like even though they're not going to actually promise it, it seems they're going to do their best to try to provide some free PSVR games. And what happens is if you can get a couple key PSVR games that you really wanted for free, it kind of ends up paying for the service. So it's a great deal overall. And then if you're playing a multiplayer game like Spark or something like that, you know, you're good to go and you can play multiplayer as well. Okay, so that's going to basically wrap it up for the news stories that I have. Again, I told you guys it's a light news week. This is probably going to be slow all the way until the international CES coming up in January. But what I wanted to do now is I can go to some questions that have been asked of me, questions that have been emailed to me, or questions that were just left in the YouTube comments. So once again, I'll remind you guys, if you want to shoot out an email, it is info@vrgamerankings.com. That's info@vrgamerankings.com. So you can always shoot me an email there if you like. But if you want to leave a question, you can just go ahead and throw it in the YouTube comments. Now, it doesn't guarantee that I'm eventually going to get to all these questions, and I'm not promising that at all. But every once in a while, I'll try to answer some of these questions and do that. And so we do have a number of questions that we can get into, and so I'll go ahead and go over this stuff. Okay, so I got an email from Jerry. And Jerry said a number of nice words about enjoying the show, which I really appreciate that. That is very helpful. Anytime you hear that kind of information about somebody really enjoying the show, it's an uplifting thing. You know, I'm banging this thing out every day, doing this stuff, and that's always good to hear. So I definitely thank Jerry for all the kind words. But he did ask a question at the end, and here's what he said. He'd like a bit more clarification about running games through Steam for our Rift VR systems. The whole working compatibility scenario is just a tad bit confusing for some of us. Do most all games work, or only a select few games work through Steam? Okay, so this one's pretty easy. So basically what you want to do, Jerry, if you haven't already done this, is you want to go into your Oculus Rift app, and you want to enable unknown sources. And so what you do to do this is you click on settings, you click on general, and then there is an unknown sources switch. You go ahead and click on that, and you also enable the allow button. And then so what this will do is this will allow the Oculus Rift to run any kind of unknown source, whether it's on Steam or whether it's one of these experiences that you simply download off of a website. For example, that Blade Runner 9732 app that was available, it was available directly from their website. So you just go to their website, you just download a file, it ends up in a folder on your desktop, you extract the files. What you do is you basically just double click on the executable, and it will eventually just open up in your Oculus Rift headset, but you have to enable unknown sources. And so this is the same thing for dealing with Steam VR games. Now, how do the games work? Do only a select few games work through Steam? Do all the games work through Steam? What I've found is probably 95% of everything will run fine through the Oculus Rift, even though it's on Steam. 95% of everything runs great. Most everything is developed in OpenVR, and it should work just fine on your Oculus Rift. Now, there could be a bit of a delay, and of course, anytime you're doing something on Steam, what happens is it ends up starting up Steam, and then Steam is looking for your headset, it's looking for your sensors, the whole Steam VR thing. So it's almost like you're running another application on top of an application. So there can be a bit of a delay there, and sometimes it takes a little bit longer to load up. But typically everything just works fine. So if you're not using Steam with your Oculus Rift, I think you're making a big mistake, because there's always going to be some extra deals on Steam. There's going to be some games that are on Steam that just aren't on the Oculus Store yet. And so you absolutely want to take advantage of Steam, even though you are an Oculus Rift owner. So that should work out great. Okay, let's get into the next question. Caesar Brown says, when is CES? And so, I've mentioned this a number of times. I don't know how many different episodes over the last 3 weeks I've mentioned the Consumer Electronics Show, the 2018 International CES. And so I looked it up, and basically it begins 10 a.m. on Tuesday, January 9th, and it ends on Friday, January 12th. Now, I do believe there are some CES related things that start as early as January 7th, but the official CES show really begins that Tuesday, January 9th at 10 a.m. That might be the keynote. Maybe there's a keynote at 10 a.m. on January 9th, and then that kind of kicks the whole thing off. And so the announcements that we're interested in terms of possibly new VR headsets, maybe even new AR headsets as well. Who knows? We might even get some more Magic Leap information at CES. So there's a lot of exciting possibilities at CES, not only in the VR world, but the AR world as well. So that will be cool. But yeah, the announcements that we're looking forward to, probably going to get them on January 9th if they're coming, but it is possible that some of them could be held back to, say, January 10th or maybe even January 11th. But those are kind of the days that we're looking for when it comes to the Consumer Electronics Show. So we're definitely looking forward to that. Okay, I got another question here from Jablo. Jablo asks, can you make a video about the roller coaster experiences in VR, like a ranking of something? There are plenty of them in the Oculus Store. Okay, Jablo, I got to admit, man, I've never gotten into these roller coaster things in VR. Now, to tell the truth, I haven't actually tried a lot of them. The only roller coaster thing actually that I've ever tried is Until Dawn Rush of Blood, which isn't an actual roller coaster simulator. It's not a pure roller coaster simulator in any way, shape, or form. But you are kind of on this slow moving roller coaster. You know, sometimes it's going uphill and you're kind of click, 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 and then sometimes it drops and makes those dips and those kinds of things. And I have to say that when I played Rush of Blood And when it made these dips and it's kind of, going really fast and you're going down, I kind of would occasionally get a weird feeling where it was the disconnect from the standpoint that I'm sitting in a chair. The chair isn't doing nothing. The chair is just sitting there, but I'm experiencing this thing visually where I should be feeling this momentum of going up and down and kind of feeling that in your stomach. And I didn't feel that. And so there were a couple of points in Rush of Blood where I felt just a wee bit of queasiness. Now, the good news with Rush of Blood is those little sections of the game that do that are extremely short and they're over before you know it. So you don't really get a chance to get motion sickness from that. But I think that's one of the reasons I've kind of not gotten into some of these roller coaster simulators. And I don't know, for me, when I think of the roller coaster simulators, I actually think of D-Box. Do you guys know what D-Box is? There's these movie theaters out there that they have normal movie theater seats, but they might have a couple of rows that are equipped with these specialized motorized seats called D-Box. And you can pay you pay extra money for one of these tickets. Like you could probably see the new Star Wars movie in D-Box. And then what it is the chair, you sit in the chair and the chair will tilt back. It'll move in different directions and it is synced up with the action that is happening on screen. And so if I had a chair like that and I'm doing a roller coaster simulator, absolutely, that would be awesome. And I really wouldn't have a problem doing that, because I think if you have a little bit of this movement that is timed with the experience, then you don't have that disconnect with your brain, and I think it'll work a lot better. So, I just haven't tried any of these roller coaster things. But yeah, it's a good idea. Maybe I'll try to, if anybody has any suggestions on what they think is the absolute best roller coaster experience that, as far as they can tell, doesn't cause a ton of motion sickness but still works really good, go ahead and throw that in the comments, and then Jablo, myself, and anybody else that happens to see it, maybe we can go ahead and try that out. Especially if there's a demo of it, then it makes it that much easier. Okay, Chris Richardson asks, have you considered including links to things you discuss on this show? Chris, that's a great question, and the honest answer on this is yeah, I've considered a lot of things. In fact, why don't I have timestamps? Why don't I have timestamps on my show for the different segments that I'm covering, the different news stories, so that somebody could just jump ahead to whatever topic it is? And then why don't I add links as well? This is definitely a good idea. Now, what I'll say to this is that basically what I have to do is I have to develop a routine where it just becomes automatic, because what happens is if I start adding in timestamps and links one day but I don't do it another day, then people can get frustrated. So it's like once you start doing something, you kind of just have to do it going forward, and I just haven't developed this as part of my daily routine in terms of doing the whole show. And there's a lot of things that are going on simultaneously, the editing, there's a lot of background stuff that's going on. So I've kind of just been, well, I'm kind of happy with what I'm delivering right now, and would I like to do a hell of a lot better? Sure, I would, but as long as I keep doing what I'm doing, at least that's halfway decent. And then if I can incorporate some extra stuff, I will. But yeah, this really shouldn't take that much time for me to do this. It's probably only going to take me another 5-10 minutes to try to add some of this extra stuff when I'm putting in the YouTube information when you're uploading the video. So this is something I'll definitely consider doing, especially with you mentioning this. It's something I've thought of in the back of my mind and absolutely should be doing it. I really don't have a legit excuse for that, to be honest with you. Okay, I have another question from Jiblo, and here he says, hey Anthony, did you get the climb? Is it worth it? And he says, honestly, from the trailers, don't see a point of paying even $10 for an experience unless there is something that I'm missing here. Okay, so I did get the climb, and I got it for $10. And first, your comment about paying $10 for an experience, there's some incredible experiences that are absolutely worth $10 in my opinion. So I wouldn't say that just because something is an experience, don't pay money for it. We eventually have to start paying money for some of these great experiences so that we'll get more of them. You know, the surest sign of appreciation is you actually paying money for something. That is the ultimate expression of appreciation. You're saying, you know what, I appreciate this so much that I'm giving my $10 and you're going to give that great experience to me, and I'm showing my appreciation by giving you this money. And so eventually we do need to start doing this. But as far as the climb goes, what I'll say is I've only played about 20 minutes of it. And I definitely want to play a lot more. It feels incredibly polished. It's really dialed in. The climbing mechanic is really well designed and works well. And so I'm interested in the game. In fact, one of the things I'm extremely curious about is whether or not this is really going to kick. I have a fear of heights, like in real life. Like I won't go to the top of the Empire State Building and stand close to the edge and look over. I'm just not going to do that. And in VR, when I first got VR, I had a tremendous fear of heights in a lot of VR experiences. And then it basically completely disappeared and I didn't have any fear of heights anymore. And so I'm kind of wondering when I'll get that back. And every once in a while, I will get into a certain experience here or there where I do kind of feel a little bit of that sensation. So I'm definitely curious to see if that's going to happen at some point during the climb. One little thing I need to say is I'm having a problem with my Oculus system in general, and this is related to home and it's related to the dash. And so I have this, when you're in home or when you have the dash up, one of the other, there's this background like, you know, like there's this it's like music. It's some type of music, but it's kind of like a hum, like a dun. You know, there's kind of this noise that's going on right in the background, and it's just constantly going on. And even if I get into a VR game and I'm playing like Fallout 4 or From Other Suns or anything on my Oculus Rift, if the game goes dead silent, I hear that hum. And that it's like I can't turn off that hum. And then I've gone into the Oculus Home and I turn down, it has like music and sound effects. And I've turned those completely down and the hum is still there. I turn them completely up, the hum is still there. I can't get rid of this just background, you know, this background humming noise. And so I'm at the point now where this was really pissing me off when I was playing the climb. It really bothered me, and it was one of the reasons I only played it for 20 minutes. So what I might have to do now is I've posted a question on Reddit about this exact situation in the Oculus subreddit, this background noise. How do I get it to shut off? And no one really, well, one guy came in and said, you just go into home and you turn down the volume. I did that, and the hum was still there. I turned up the volume, the hum was still there. Then if I go into the dash, if I go into the sound of the dash and I turn the sound dash all the way down, then the hum goes away, but then I have no game audio. The game audio completely goes away. So I'm kind of stuck like Chuck. I don't know if it's just some little bug that is affecting me with home and dash, but I'm at the point now where I'm sick of this background hum kind of being in the background. So I'm going to probably actually opt out of this beta version and go back to the regular Oculus version, because it might be the only way I can get rid of this damn hum. So if anybody knows anything about the hum, I definitely would like to hear about that, because that's one of the reasons I haven't played the climb a little bit more. Okay, guys, well, we've hit about the 29 minute mark, so we've got a decent show for you here, and that's pretty much going to wrap it up. So this has been episode 63 of our daily vlog series. Of course, it is Thursday, December 28th, and everybody have a great Thursday, and I'll see everybody tomorrow on Friday. Take it easy.